This series so far has been one that I've truly enjoyed due to its usage and heavy focus on dojutsu, which, as I've said about a million times and likely will say a million more, is one of my favorite things about Naruto in general. This story is one about if Naruto had the Rinnegan, but more than that, it's a story about a rivalry between Naruto and Sasuke, and that through their desire to outdo one another forces them to adapt and evolve, drawing them closer to one another. Perhaps this is what the Sage of Six Paths had wanted all along, but let's not waste more time than necessary recapping the story and the idea of the video. I'm sure that you're all just as eager to get back into this as I am. Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, only 25% of our viewers are subscribed, so if you're a fan of the video, please like and double check that you are subscribed. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Minato sat at his desk and looked over some papers. Unsatisfied by what he found, he stood up and walked to the file cabinet. He began to look through many different files, but still seemed unsatisfied, so he moved his search further and further back in the timeline. He didn't stop until he was at least 14 years into the past. There he found the original case file as well as many other findings from the investigation. So far, it was a cold case, but it was one that was very close to Minato. It was the one that had threatened the lives of himself and his family and caused many to die. The case of the masked individual who unleashed the Nine Tails into the village. When Minato had fought against him, he managed to sever his arm. That arm would later be brought in for autopsy to see who it could have possibly been, but the findings were inconclusive. The best minds of the Hidden Leaf were called in to look at the arm in hopes that it might somehow reveal to them the true identity of the attacker, but it was concluded that this arm was somehow prosthetic in nature. It was indeed biological, possessing rapidly healing cells within it, but the physical structure of the limb was not human. It possessed 100% human DNA, but it possessed so many types of DNA that no single donor could be found. Most prominently among these samples were those of Hashirama Senju. During that time, technology was not far enough advanced to detect any new DNA, but now DNA testing had come a long way and it was beginning to become more viable, even if it were a long shot. "Those cells we have on ice aren't gonna last forever," a voice said to Minato as he looked through. "What do you suppose we do?" Minato asked. Jiraiya smiled. "We need to go and convince Tsunade to return to the village. If she does, her expertise should be able to help us solve this mystery." Minato nodded. But will she come back? Jiraiya shrugged. "It's worth a shot." Minato sat down in his chair and put the case file down before him. "All right, go after her. I'll send my son with you to be my stead. He'll have instructions of things he can offer her on my behalf to get her to come to Konoha." Jiraiya nodded. "All right, I'll go pick him up." Jiraiya walked the streets towards the home of the Namikaze family. He'd always endeavored to be a part of this family, but the distance at which he lived away from the village, as well as his work for Konoha in the shadows, had always kept him at a distance. Estranged, yes, but all the same still that crazy uncle that always received a king's welcome while in town. He came to the Namikaze family home and knocked on the door. Naruto would open it up and welcome him in. Jiraiya stepped in. "How are things going, Naruto? How's your mother?" "Oh, she's been tired recently, but she's doing okay." Kushina would walk into the room. "Oh, welcome, Jiraiya." Jiraiya was shocked a bit. "Kushina, you look so... She smiled. "Pregnant? Yeah, me and Minato were talking, and we knew we weren't getting any younger, so we decided to try for another." "I'm hoping it's a boy," Naruto said. "I'm gonna teach him how to do the sexy jutsu," he snickered. "It'll be great if it's a girl too, right?" Kushina asked. Naruto nodded a little. "Yes, but I really want a little brother." Jiraiya looked up at Kushina, who then lipped the words, "It's a girl, don't tell Naruto," to him. Jiraiya shook his head with an awkward smile. "Well, I'm just glad that everyone's happy and healthy. But I suppose you know what I'm here for. Naruto, we need you to leave Konoha. Your father's sending you on a mission to Tenezuka quarters to recruit Tsunade for the investigation in the Nine Tails assault all those years ago. Do you remember what your father said it was okay to offer her?" Naruto nods. "Good, let's go." Jiraiya then began to leave with Naruto. All the while, elsewhere, Sasuke was looking through books, trying to learn everything he could about the Sharingan and its abilities. One could say it was a watered-down version of the Rinnegan, because this was true. It was derived from the Rinnegan, and the power had diminished after a while, but it had shown that it was more than just a watered-down variant because it continued to adapt. The Sharingan had begun to evolve down different paths. It was beginning to develop into something new, something special that was removed from the Rinnegan. That's what the Mangekyo Sharingan was. But despite his research, he did not find any record of the Sharingan being able to evolve past this stage without achieving the Rinnegan, which was less of an evolution and more of a reversion. But Sasuke felt adamant in his spirit that there was an evolution out there, and so he continued to read everything he could. He studied all the dojutsu's powers and abilities, the Izanagi, the Izanami, the various genjutsu, the varied set of 2 abilities, and the Susanoo. He began to grow weary and frustrated. He sat the book down and sat back in his chair on the porch and sighed. He lifted his glass of iced tea and tried to focus on the warmth and the cool breeze blowing through. It was early summertime and far too beautiful of a day to keep cooped up inside the house all day. "Is something the matter?" Itachi asked. "Oh, I'm just frustrated," Sasuke said. "As hard as I try, I can't find any record of a form of Sharingan beyond the Mangekyo. There's never been one recorded in our history. The only thing above the Mangekyo Sharingan is the Rinnegan." Sasuke shook his head. "I don't think so. I feel like there's some hidden potential that it possesses that isn't yet realized." Itachi sat there for a moment and thought about it. "Well, I won't deny you your feelings, but don't burn yourself out, and please don't become obsessive over this like you always seem to do. You've got a pair of the most powerful eyes in all of the Uchiha clan, some of the most powerful eyes since the era of Madara Uchiha. He was the last person to possess the eternal Mangekyo. Just try to remember how blessed you are that you have what you have." Sasuke nodded. "Of course. I'm not ungrateful. I know we can do more, and I have to find out what that is." Naruto and Jiraiya walked about Tanazuka quarters looking for Tsunade. If she's not dead or asleep, she's either drinking or gambling. It's the only thing she could be doing. As they walked around, they suddenly heard an alarm go off. A commotion. What was it? It didn't sound like a fearful bell, but a joyful one. A guy ran out and called to the crowd. "Come check it out! Some blonde broad just hit the jackpot on the slots on 2 different machines!" Naruto and Jiraiya looked at each other. They walked in. There were 2 buckets sitting on the ground full of silver dollars. A woman with blonde hair, a stern look, and an absurdly large bust was attempting to sneak off with their winnings as the house manager was having engineers check the machines to see if they'd been tampered with. Jiraiya called out to her and waved his hand. Tsunade looked over to see him and rolled her eyes with visible disdain for him being there. Jiraiya rushed over along with Naruto. "Wow, you won 2 slot machines at once? That's amazing!" "I don't know what you're here for, Jiraiya, but whatever it is, I'm not interested. Go home." Jiraiya and Naruto looked to each other. Jiraiya continued to walk with her. "Is that any way to treat an old friend? Let's just talk for a while." Tsunade stopped walking and looked over. "I don't care what it is you have to say, Jiraiya. I don't want any part of it. Go home." She then began to walk off. Jiraiya called out to her. "At least hear us out, for old time's sake. We're still friends, aren't we?" Tsunade stopped walking for a moment and sighed. She looked down and shook her head before looking back at Jiraiya for a moment. She then motioned him to follow her with her head. She led them to a bar where she sat her 2 buckets down by a booth. Naruto and Jiraiya sat down across from her. Someone came to their table to take an order. "Your finest bottle of scotch for me, a beer for him, and an apple juice for the kid. What do you want then?" Jiraiya spoke frankly. "We want you to come back to Konoha for a time. It's not long. We just need you to help us run tests on a severed arm and see if we can detect who it belonged to." Tsunade shook her head. No can do. Jiraiya was confused. "Why not? It's just a short trip to Konoha to run some tests. It's basically a 3-day weekend. We'll even pay you handsomely." Tsunade sat forward. "The necklace around my neck alone is worth more than anything your Hokage can offer me. Do you not see these buckets of money at my feet? No, I don't need any of that." She sat back and took another swig. Normally, I'd actually agree to this, but not today of all days. Jiraiya looked at Naruto in confusion, who offered him the same look. The two then looked back at Tsunade as Jiraiya asked what came up that was holding her back. Tsunade looked down at the buckets at her feet. This happened. Jiraiya looked at the buckets and didn't understand. Tsunade explained. "I got double luck today, and by luck I mean I hit an astronomical lottery. In my experience, luck is always in balance. If something astronomically good just happened to someone, then somewhere very close to me, something astronomically bad is about to happen. And I don't want to be there when it happens, which is why I'm going straight home to pack up and leave this town and venture out into the wilderness to live for a while." Jiraiya scoffed. "You can't be serious." Tsunade smiled. "Of course, I believe it." Naruto then spoke. "Okay, perhaps that's so, but then again, it's obvious to me that you're a gambling woman, are you not?" Tsunade looked to Naruto. "Yes, I am. What of it?" Naruto smiled. "So often you go up against the house when gambling, but what if I gave you the chance to become the house?" Tsunade sat forward, intrigued by this little guy's idea. "Go on, I'm listening." Naruto continued. My father's been looking for more ways to increase revenue for the village, besides just shinobi missions. We want to invite people to come to our town. We're considering upgrading our entertainment district by adding in a mega casino. Something to draw people in from across the land of fire. Imagine owning your own private casino. I know you said you've got enough money that you never need to work again, yet you still gamble. That tells me you're not gambling because you want more money. But the threat that you could lose it, that's what draws you in. The thrill of the game. And that's what my father authorized me to offer you. Naruto pulled a folder from his pack and slid it across the table. Tsunade opened it and began to read it. You would be totally in charge of the house. Play to your heart's content, set up games, competitions, watch people lose their life savings. Watch some poor schmo off the street with $5 walk in, become a millionaire, and then lose it again that night. This is what I offer you. A thrill beyond anything you can find here. All you gotta do is take one last bet against fate. A bet that you can go to Konoha for a few days, complete your job, and get out before whatever you think is gonna happen happens. What do you say? Tsunade began to smirk. She looked at Jiraiya. I like this one. But the thing Naruto didn't realize is that maybe fate was moving right then and there. And he didn't know just how close to home it had hit. As Minato sat there at his desk, an uneasy feeling came over him. A bad feeling. An omen that something was not right in his village. He didn't know why, but he got the sudden urge to call Kushina and tell her to get in the basement. He felt like something really bad was about to happen. As Kushina was working on supper prep, she heard the phone go off. She turned around and saw it ringing. She walked over. The caller ID showed the office of the Hokage. She picked it up. Minato, what's up? Is everything okay? I think so. I don't know, Kushina pulled up a chair and sat down. What's wrong, baby? She heard Minato huff over the transceiver. Something doesn't feel right. I feel like something is about to happen. Kushina was silent for a moment. Do you really feel like that? Is it possible that maybe you're just overworked and stressed? Are you having an anxiety attack? He was silent for a moment. I don't know. Maybe. She would smile softly. Minato, it's okay. You're the Hokage. You've been dealing with a case that was personal to you and was traumatic for us. That on top of your regular duties and the fact that we're about to have another baby, it's okay to admit that maybe you need to take a break. Minato nodded, though he didn't expect her to see it. Maybe you're right, but still, my head is swimming in fear. I just feel like something bad's about to happen. Will you at least go down into the basement for a little while and lock the door? I'm gonna come home and check on you, if for no other reason than to set my mind at ease. Kushina smiled again. Okay, baby, I'll go down to the basement. When you get here, knock on the door 5 times and I'll know it's you. Then I'll open it for you. All right, I'll be there in a second. Love you. He hung up the phone. She returned the phone to Atuk and turned around. She was sure there was nothing to worry about, but because she loved her husband, she went downstairs to wait for him, just as she said. She locked the door behind her and found a nice chair to sit on until he got back. As soon as she was about to sit down, though, she heard the knock. 5 times a set of knuckles hit the door. She giggled. What was the point of me having to come down here if you were just going to use the flying Raijin to come home, Minato? She smirked as she opened the door. Suddenly, she saw a single ruby eye peering through a swirling mask. She felt her heart stop. It was the man she saw in her nightmares. She screamed as he pushed her back into the basement. As Minato was walking the streets heading home, he looked around to make sure nothing was amiss. He looked. Kids were at play, parents were at the store, people were laughing and cheering, and life was just going on as normal. Minato himself seemed to be the only one scared right now. Even Kushina wasn't startled. Maybe he was having an anxiety attack. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe he was just overworked. Or so he thought, until suddenly an explosion occurred at the center of the village, and the form of a fox rose from the ground with a cry. Minato saw this and tears began to form in his eyes. No, Kushina! Sasuke was in his room studying when it happened. But suddenly, as he turned the page of his book, the entire house shook violently. Sasuke stood up and looked out the window, but saw nothing. He heard it though, an ear-piercing roar. He grabbed his kunai pouch and headband. He ran down the hallway. Looking in to see Itachi, who'd been taking a nap, his brother was already attempting to get on his Anbu gear. What's going on? He looked into the distance and saw the Nine Tails standing in the center of the village, its tails viciously whipping around, its claws tearing up the subdivisions in wrath. Itachi ran out next. As the battle began, the forces of Konoha lined up against the Nine Tails, but it became increasingly obvious that it wasn't only the Nine Tails they were fighting. Another group was there. There were 6 of them, and they all had eyes like Naruto. Each member of the strange enemy force began to devastate the village in their own way. Minato attempted to fight through, but was caught off guard by 2 of the 6 paths of pain. Kakashi was caught off guard by one of them, and 2 others were busy leading the charge against the Konoha forces, all while a masked man stood there on the nose of the Ninetales. Itachi ran through, and with the power of his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, he would form his Susanoo, its size being roughly equal to the Ninetales. He would display his sword of Totsuka and prepare to use it to seal the Ninetales away for a time until they could properly seal it back into Miss Kushina. But as the flaming sake blade drew closer to the Ninetales, Itachi found that the blade passed right through the beast, without causing any damage. He saw the tiny man on the nose, his Mangekyo Sharingan glowing as it seemed he was attempting to pass his powers onto the Ninetales he was obviously controlling. Sasuke ran to the center of the town and saw the fight. He witnessed Itachi facing the Ninetales. He ran to help, but was caught off guard by the Diva Path of the 6 Paths of Pain. Sasuke activated his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. He didn't even offer to speak with the man, as this was an act of war. Whoever he was, even if his eyes were the same as Naruto's, he would fight and defeat this man. Sasuke activated his Susanoo as well and began to strike out at the man, but he pushed him back with Almighty Push. The Diva Path then formed meteorites in the air with the Chibaku Tensei technique and began to rain them down on Sasuke's Susanoo. Each meteor struck with enough force to bring the giant avatar to its knees. Sasuke raised his hand up. The crossbow attached to the forearm of his Susanoo began to fire bolts up into the sky at the incoming debris, firing into the core to break it into harmless rubble. Sasuke then turned to the Diva Path to continue his attack, only to find that it had summoned the Geto statue, which then proceeded to strike out at Sasuke's Susanoo. Sasuke was pushed back again by this. The Geto statue was the strangest thing he had ever faced. It felt as if it were made of wood, and yet it moved. Sasuke had read about wood release and wondered if he were fighting a wood golem or the true several thousand hands. But it was impossible to be the latter, as the latter was, as the name implied, capable of having many extra arms, and it was said to be of a size that was capable of dwarfing even the Ninetales, and this statue was roughly similar in size to Sasuke. But slowly, he felt it absorbing his chakra. What was this? Suddenly, his Susanoo, weakened, was smashed through by the statue's fist, a fist that punched straight into Sasuke, sending him flying straight to a building. Sasuke lost consciousness there. The statue would then turn around and grab Itachi's Susanoo by the nape and begin to pull it away, draining its chakra while doing so. The Ninetales would then raise its hand and strike out at Itachi, piercing through the Susanoo with its claw before impaling Itachi on the claw as well. Pierced clean through by the Ninetales, Itachi's Susanoo vanished. He was then flung off the Ninetales' finger as if he were nothing more than a bug. Itachi went flying and hit the ground. Sasuke was unaware of what was happening. All he saw was darkness, and all he heard was the screaming of others near him. And then, even that faded. Naruto, Jiraiya, and Tsunade would return home to find the village in ruins. "What happened here?" Jiraiya cried out, looking at the destruction. "It seems we couldn't outrun fate," Tsunade said. Naruto looked around at the destruction. He asked one of the people sitting near a shop, currently putting ice to his head, what had gone on. The man looked up. "The Ninetales." Naruto heard that and immediately began to worry for his mother. He ran home only to find a crater where it once had been. Sasuke himself would awaken in the hospital where his father would be waiting for him. His father broke the news. For days there was nothing but lamenting. Minato was the one who was in charge of presiding over the memorial service for the dead, but even he didn't possess the strength to do so. He took one look at a grave. It said, "Forever together, mother and child, Kushina Uzumaki and Shoyu Namikaze." Minato fell to his knees by the grave, and that look of utter despair was all he had to say to get the point across. The service was silent, as those who lost or were close with someone who had lost could hardly believe that such a thing happened. Naruto walked up to his father and knelt down. He'd never seen him like this. "Father?" Minato was silent, simply staring down at the grave, or perhaps through it, as if trying to see the ones beneath the ground. Naruto's eyes began to water up as he hugged onto him. Minato's own eyes began to overflow with tears as they continued to embrace. A distance away, Hinata watched. She so desperately wanted to say something to comfort Naruto, but now was not the time. She couldn't and shouldn't interfere in their time of mourning together. Over to the side, Sasuke was kneeling down beside Itachi's grave. His hand lowered down to grasp the freshly dug dirt. He lifted it up and looked at it before putting it back down. Sakura would walk up behind him. She would kneel down behind him and hug him from behind. Her face was resting on his right shoulder for a moment. She then spoke. "Are you okay, Sasuke?" "I'm gonna kill them," he said. Tears ran down his angry face as he grit his teeth. "The people who did this to Itachi, I'm gonna kill them." Naruto felt guilty for not being there. Much like the assailant, according to Sasuke, Naruto possessed the Rinnegan, and if he had been there, maybe he could have done something to stop it. But Minato continued to tell Naruto that neither of them could have known this was going to happen, and Naruto was away on mission at the time. But Naruto vowed to grow stronger until they could figure out where these people were. Then, Naruto would kill them. Naruto and Sasuke would begin sparring together quite a bit, constantly attempting to grow stronger, but they felt as if they were plateauing, that there wasn't much they could do to improve upon what they already had. It was then that Jiraiya approached. "If you want to learn some real powerful stuff, I recommend going to train with the Toad Sages of Mount Myoboku." He would point at Naruto. "Those eyes. The great sage Gamamaru knew the Sage of Six Paths personally. Perhaps he can help you further access the powers within your eyes." He then looked to Sasuke. "And if there's anything beyond the power of the Mangekyo, then Gamamaru will know about it. Ask him your questions on top of training to acquire Sage Mode, and I'm sure you'll walk out of the mountain 10 times stronger than before." Naruto and Sasuke then proceeded to venture out to Mount Myoboku to learn about the great Toad Sages. Once they arrived, they would come to Gamamaru. They would each offer their respects to the elderly Toad. "We're here to learn from you, great Toad Sage," Naruto would say. "I'm Naruto Namikaze, and this here's my brother-in-arms, Sasuke Uchiha." Gamamaru would smile. "Oh, are you the two that Jiraiya boy sent a message to me about? The two promising shinobi?" Gamamaru sat forward and looked at Sasuke Uchiha. "And you must be the one with the eyes of the sage. Can you display them for me? The Rinnegan. I desire to look upon them once again as I did in ages long past." Sasuke looked up to the sage. "Forgive me, Your Honor, but I am not the one that possesses the Rinnegan. That would be Naruto." Naruto would smile and close his eye. When he opened them next, they'd be ringed and the color of lavender. The great Toad Sage would smile and sit back. "Ah, seeing those eyes surely brings back old times. What a wonderful set of eyes you possess, and powerful too. It's been so long since I've seen the sage's eyes." The great sage would clap his hands together. Two toads would appear. "Please, take these two out to the mountain and begin teaching them these sage arts." The two toads would bow their heads in respect and motion Naruto and Sasuke to follow. Naruto and Sasuke would then begin the process of learning senjutsu. They would both train for weeks to tap into sage jutsu. At this time, they managed to awaken their sage mode, but were not yet done honing it. Tapping into sage energy was the easy part. It was learning to control it so you didn't kill yourself that was hard. And so they trained for months to master this technique. During this time, they balanced it with learning other techniques. Naruto would ask about any abilities that Gamamaru knew that the Rinnegan could do. Gamamaru would mention something not too dissimilar from Sasuke's Susanoo. It was called Six Paths Kunitsukame. It was a chakra avatar made of golden chakra, and it would take the form of a man with 6 arms and 3 faces. These faces would then proceed to form various weapons out of the many Truth Seeker orbs hovering behind the being. Naruto and Sasuke would further study the history of the Sage of Six Paths, including the origin of the tailed beasts and the 10 tails itself. Sasuke would eventually speak with Gamamaru and ask him about his Sharingan's potential, if there was a way to evolve it further. Gamamaru would surprise him by telling him that there was, and that very few ever knew about it because the process was hard to complete, and that the key aspect to it had become feared. If this process was used without proper preparations, it could result in eternal blindness. Gamamaru would tell Sasuke that it was hard to do, but if he could accomplish it, his power would grow substantially. Sasuke agreed to do it. The sage would tell Sasuke that he must find a saltwater lake. He would offer Sasuke a map and tell him the rest of the ritual and send 2 toads to assist him. Sasuke traveled down to the lake and there he would enter the water. Submerging himself in the cold water and coming up, he'd proceed to wash his left eye, then his right, before also washing his nose. He would then weave multiple hand signs together in accordance with what the sage told him, all while one of the toads shakes an onusa above his head. Sasuke would weave the hand signs: ram, boar, dog, snake, rat, monkey, dragon, tiger, bird, horse, rabbit, ox. He did all of this while memorizing the sensation and moment with his Sharingan. He would stop for a second and then once again go under the water. He would come up a second time, washing his left eye, then his right, and finally his nose all over again, before repeating the same hand signs in the same order while the onusa above his head was dangling the same way. As he does this, Izanami activates. Sasuke had successfully activated the first required jutsu with his left eye. Then, with his right, he casts Izanagi. This was an important thing to do, as the Great Toad Sage told him that by casting Izanami first, he was ensuring that he could infinitely loop Izanagi, which would come in handy later, as he was personally reprogramming his Sharingan right now to reach completion. All of this was done as Sasuke was taking in Senjutsu, and now with Izanagi he was using it the way it was meant to be used. The Toad Sage had told him that Izanagi had been a practical usage of the Six Paths creation of all things technique, and with it he could blur the line between reality and illusion. What Sasuke desired would be achieved if he did this correctly, but he would need to concentrate. With Izanagi activated, he forced it to rewrite his Mangekyo Sharingan and awaken the hidden potential within. After doing so, he would once more dive under the water, come up, wash his left eye, his right, and then his nose before weaving the hand signs a third time, with the Onusa being waved above him. He would then release the Genjutsu and Ninjutsu he had cast upon himself with a separate hand sign. This was the moment of truth. If he had failed, he would be forever blinded. But if he succeeded, he would awaken the final evolution of the Sharingan. He felt a change, and in a moment, his eyes dulled in light. I failed, he thought. But suddenly he'd feel a massive throb, as suddenly the skies above began to thunder. The water around him circulated as he arose from the water in his Susanoo. Suddenly beside him was an image of a sun and an image of a moon. The two toads were astounded by this. Sasuke would return to the ground. Once more, the dojutsu's pattern changed. He was astounded by it. He felt it. This was the thing he'd been searching for over the past few years. This was it. And so he named it, the Kyukyoku Sharingan. After this, Naruto and Sasuke came to the conclusion that their training was successful. They would return to Konoha, and there they'd be met by Kakashi, who told them that they needed to go to the Hokage's office. Once there, Minato began to explain to them what they had learned. Tsunade ran her tests on the arm and found some matches. Tsunade appeared too and began to speak. We were going at it from the wrong angle. There were too many sets of DNA to wade through, so I began to test the chakra signatures within and match them to any known shinobi. We managed to get a hit. Naruto was surprised. Who did it match to? Me, Kakashi said. The chakra signature had a match to me. Naruto looked to Tsunade. I'm confused. So was I, Tsunade said. I almost threw the readings out. But that's when I realized that Kakashi has more than just his own chakra circulating within. He possesses the chakra of Obito Uchiha due to his Mangekyo Sharingan. Kakashi stood there for a moment. I hated the idea that Obito could still be alive, having turned on the village like this, but it makes too much sense. Minato then began to speak. Kakashi and the one who killed Kushina each have one Sharingan from a set, and their abilities are linked together. Kakashi's teleportation technique and the assailant's teleportation technique, they're the same. So we've been testing things out, and we found that we're actually capable of reversing the technique and teleporting ourselves to Obito's location. And wherever he is, you can be sure that both Pain and the Ninetales are there too. We're currently getting a strike squad together. Minato stood. He walked over and put his hands on Naruto's and Sasuke's shoulders. I want you two to be the ones heading up the attack. I have faith that each of you will be able to defeat them with your new techniques. Now, go prepare. We're launching the attack as soon as you're ready. And so the two of them went to get ready. Both were slightly nervous of what could happen, but they swallowed their fear and kept moving forward. After they'd prepared, the two returned to Minato, who would have Kakashi open the portal. The strike squad would then pass through into the realm of Kamui. Once they were all inside, Kakashi would lock onto Obito's location and teleport them all in. Within a moment, they were in Amagakure, in the Palace of Pain. Obito and most of the Akatsuki were here. Kakashi would stay behind with most of the strike force to face off against Obito as well as the other Akatsuki members, buying Naruto and Sasuke time. They would rush to face Pain, bursting into his throne room. You killed my mother, Naruto shouted at him, and you killed my brother, Sasuke said. The Divapath stood from his throne. I taught you something. Something that the whole world needs to learn. Something I think I need to teach you again. Suddenly, the other 5 members of the Six Paths appeared. Naruto and Sasuke stood back to back. Remember what Gamamaru said, Naruto told Sasuke. None of those are the real Pain. They're remotely connected nearby. We just need to find the real body. Sasuke nodded. Naruto's Rinnegan activated as Sasuke's Kyokyoku Sharingan activated as well. Both boys activated Senjutsu and launched into battle. Sasuke would cast Amaterasu on the Naraka path first, hoping to nullify the one that could heal the others. Naruto would use Universal Pull to drag the Ashura path to him before planting a Truthseeker orb right into its midsection, blowing the mechanical monstrosity away. The Preta path would latch onto Naruto to absorb his chakra, only to be turned to stone when Naruto fueled it with too much Senjutsu. He would then smash the half-toad statue to pieces. Suddenly, the Diva path rushed Sasuke, smashing him into the wall. He would then take a chakra rod, raise it above his head, and plunge it into Sasuke's heart. Naruto would cry out. Sasuke's lifeless body laid there, but only for a moment before disappearing and reappearing behind Pain. Sasuke would knee Pain in the back of the head. This left Pain questioning things. How was it that this had happened? Was it a substitution jutsu? No, it was Izanagi. Pain stood and turned around, only to realize that Sasuke had not gone blind by it. Surprised, Sasuke said, I can use it as much as I want without going blind. The only downside is a cooldown. Sasuke would rush in with Chidori, but would be pushed by Almighty Push. Naruto would plant truth-seeking orbs into the other paths, destroying them. Naruto would then rush to Sasuke to help. Diva was beginning to feel overwhelmed, so he summoned the Ghetto statue. Sasuke would summon his Susanoo, and Naruto would summon his Six Paths Kunitsukami to battle against it. They would strike out, causing damage to the statue. Naruto would then throw a kunai at the Diva Path. The Diva Path thought it was a pathetic attempt to attack him, and as he was ready to knock it away with his hand, he'd be surprised when Sasuke activated Ameno Tejikara to switch places with it. He would punch Pain in the face and cause him to roll back before leaping off and once more taking the form of his Susanoo. Together, Naruto and Sasuke would push back the statue. Sasuke would raise his Susanoo's fist and coat it with Amaterasu, controlling it with Kagutsuchi, preparing to smash Pain. But Pain was ready. What he didn't realize, though, is that it was all just a feint. Naruto threw another kunai and Sasuke switched places with it again and would smash Pain in the face with his fist once more, before jumping off and reassuming the form of his Susanoo. It was then that Pain began to experience these same sensations over and over and over again. He'd been caught in Izanami. In reality, he was just standing there, motionless. Naruto and Sasuke lowered to the ground and began to search for the chakra pattern of the true Pain. Opening a door, they would find him standing there with Konan. Sasuke would easily kill Konan with Amaterasu. After all, paper is very flammable. Naruto, however, is the one to finish off Pain. And with Nagato dead, the true threat was at an end. Kakashi managed to kill Obito, although not without physical and emotional wounds opening up, and the rest of the Akatsuki were defeated. Naruto would then find and secure the Nine Tails, sealing it into himself with Six Paths' coffin seal. Not long after, they'd return to the village to a hero's welcome. With the Nine Tails restored to them, the threat of war would fade and the village would begin to heal. Naruto would eventually locate Sasuke in the arena at the center of the Forest of Death. They were all alone. "You called me here?" Naruto asked. Sasuke turned around and smiled. "Remember when we were here the last time?" Naruto nodded. "You gave me one of the greatest fights of my life. I was hardly able to beat you. I thought I had once and for all proven that the Rinnegan was superior to the Sharingan." "But do you remember what I said later that night?" Sasuke asked. Naruto thought back. "That the Sharingan maybe had an ultimate evolution." Sasuke nodded. "Yes, and now I've been proven right." He displayed his Kyukyoku Sharingan. This is the ultimate form of the Sharingan. Would you care to test if your theory that the Rinnegan is more powerful holds any water? Naruto would close his eyes and activate his own Rinnegan. He would stare through his brows and smile. "I'd like nothing more." And I think I'm gonna leave that battle up to your imagination. Really, it depends on what you think is better. For reference, I'll tell you what the abilities of the Kyukyoku Sharingan are. It possesses all of the abilities of the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, but also includes Izanagi and Izanami, each with an hour to cool down, as well as the ability Ameno Tejikara. That against a Rinnegan. What do you think would win? Tell me down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this series with me. I absolutely loved writing it. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell to show us. It helps us here at the Amagi and allows us to continue bringing you more wonderful stories like this. Until next time, peace out.